Hi, I'm Jim Ward, and I'm a librarian at the Middle Country Public Library, and I'll be presenting History Bites, interesting facts about Gettysburg. For those of you who aren't familiar with the battle, it was the largest ever fought in the Western Hemisphere and occurred during the middle of the American Civil War from July 1st to July 3rd, 1863, when Confederate General Robert E. Lee invaded the North to try to win on Northern soil and force a peace with Abraham Lincoln. The climax of the battle was Pickett's charge, where 13,000 Confederates attacked the Union center and were repulsed. The Union won the battle, and the Confederacy would never be on the offensive again for the rest of the war. John F. Reynolds was considered the best Union general. He was offered command of the Army of the Potomac, but turned it down because he didn't want interference from his superiors in Washington on military decisions. On July 1st, 1863, Reynolds was urging his Iron Brigade on to push back the Confederates when a bullet struck him in the head, killing him instantly. John F. Reynolds was the highest ranking officer killed at the Battle of Gettysburg. John Burns was a Gettysburg resident who was a veteran of the War of 1812 and a former town constable of Gettysburg. On July 1st, with rebels invading his town, he was not about to stand by and just watch. He grabbed his flintlock musket and told his wife, quote, "I am going out to see what is going on." He approached an officer of the 150th Pennsylvania and fought alongside the Iron Brigade, which were regiments of men from Wisconsin, Michigan, and Indiana. Burns was wounded 3 times and was captured, but soon released. He was made an honorary member of the Iron Brigade and met President Lincoln, who actually sought out Burns when he came to the dedication of the Soldiers' National Cemetery in November of 1863. And there's the statue at Gettysburg of John Burns, and you can, when you go down there, you can take a look at it. Then we come to the 11th Pennsylvania and Sallie the dog, known as Sallie the war dog. She was the mascot of the 11th Pennsylvania. She was given to the regiment as a puppy and took part in all their battles, taking position at the end of the firing line. And as the members of the 11th Pennsylvania said, she barked furiously at rebels. She was separated from the regiment on July 1st at Gettysburg. The men of her regiment thought she had been lost, but when they returned after the battle to the scene of the first day's fighting, they found Sallie, weak but alive, and guarding the wounded and dead of her regiment. When you visit the Gettysburg battlefield today, you will see this monument as you travel along the Confederate position along Seminary Ridge. The North Carolina Memorial is a tribute to over 14,000 North Carolinians who fought at the Battle of Gettysburg. Their 6,000 casualties are the largest amount of any Confederate state, and over 1/4 of Confederate casualties in the battle came from North Carolina. The sculptor of this memorial is Gutzon Borglum, the same person who carved the president's faces on Mount Rushmore. Daniel Sickles was a former Tammany Hall politician who attained the command of a corps at Gettysburg not because of any military experience, but because of his political connections. In 1859, Sickles shot and killed his wife's lover in Lafayette Park, just across from the White House. This man whom Sickles shot was Philip B. Key, a U.S. attorney and the son of the author of the Star Spangled Banner, Francis Scott Key. On July 2nd at Gettysburg, he made blunders that put his regiment far out in front of the Union line that created a gap. Sickles also lost his leg in this fight that day, during which he was carried off the field, quote, coolly smoking a cigar. Later, as a congressman in 1895, Sickles would introduce the bill that made Gettysburg a national military park. When asked why he doesn't have a monument on the battlefield, he responded, "The whole damn battlefield is my monument." As Alabama soldiers were marching toward the Union center to attack, General Winfield Scott Hancock realized that there was a gap in the Union center. The only regiment in that area was the 1st Minnesota. Hancock rode up to its colonel, William Colville, and said, "Do you see those colors? Take them." 262 men from the 1st Minnesota charged into the approaching Alabamians. The Minnesota men achieved the goal of keeping the Alabamians from breaking through to the rear of the Union Army, but at a large price. 82% of the 262 men who went out in that charge fell, the largest of any regiment at Gettysburg. Winfield Scott Hancock and Lewis A. Armistead forged a friendship while serving in the Army together in California prior to the Civil War. With the secession of the slave states, Armistead resigned on May 26, 1861, and in a farewell party is reported to have told Hancock, quote, "May God strike me dead," if he ever raised a hand against his friend in battle. When war broke out, Armistead followed his home state of Virginia out of the Union, and Hancock fought for it. During Pickett's charge on July 3rd at Gettysburg, Armistead led his brigade toward the Union position, while his good friend Hancock commanded the soldiers on Cemetery Ridge, the exact location that Armistead was attacking. During the ensuing charge, Hancock was struck and Armistead was mortally wounded while attempting to turn a Union cannon on the enemy. Armistead's last words were quote, "Say to General Hancock for me that I have done him and you all a grievous injury, which I shall always regret." He was taken to a federal field hospital where he requested that his watch and other valuables be given to his friend Hancock, who had faced him that day from the Union lines on Cemetery Ridge. The two would never see each other again, and Armistead died 2 days later on July 5th and was buried in his family plot in St. Paul's Churchyard in Baltimore. Alonzo Cushing was 22 years old as a first lieutenant of Battery A, 4th U.S. Artillery during Pickett's charge on July 3rd at Gettysburg. All of his officers had been killed and all but 2 of his guns silenced. Despite having received wounds in the abdomen and right shoulder, he continued to personally direct every shot as his crew struggled to reload and fire each shot. Grasping the lanyard that fired the gun, he shouted to a sergeant nearby, "I will give them one more shot." Seconds later, another shot struck and killed him instantly. 151 years later, President Obama posthumously awarded him the Congressional Medal of Honor for his heroic acts of bravery at Gettysburg. On the morning of July 3rd, 1863, 20-year-old Jenny Wade was kneading dough in her sister's kitchen, making bread for the Union soldiers when pings and ricochets of bullets came flying through the house. Jenny was struck in the back and killed instantly. She's the only civilian to be killed during the Battle of Gettysburg. However, her tragic story does not end there. Jenny was engaged to a Union soldier from Gettysburg, Corporal Johnston Jack Sallie, who, unknown to her, had been mortally wounded at the Battle of Winchester 2 weeks prior. Private Wesley Culp, a Gettysburg native fighting for the Confederacy and who had gone to school with Jenny and Jack, came across Skelly at a field hospital where the wounded soldier gave him a note to pass on to his fiancée Jenny. However, unfortunately, the note never made it to Jenny. On the same day she was killed, Culp died during the fighting near his family's farm on Culp's Hill. Skelly succumbed to his mortal wounds 9 days after Jenny and Wesley died. Today, Jack Skelly and Jenny Wade lie in rest close to each other in the Evergreen Cemetery in Gettysburg, together again. I hope you enjoyed this history video, and if you liked it, please click like. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit subscribe. Thanks so much. See you next time.